My bonus episode today features two wonderful midwives, Keri and Bev of Elite Midwives, an independent midwifery practice providing continuity of care and deeply personalized support. Their philosophy is simple and one that resonates deeply with me. Women birth best when they feel safe, respected, and connected to their own intuition. I had the pleasure of working alongside Keri and Bev in 2025 when the family I was working with wanted some professional support with the birth of their second baby. Following the spontaneous and uncomplicated first birth, they planned a home birth this time around. However, their local hospital in London was unable to provide home birth support, and the family began exploring the option of a free birth while still hoping for professional support in their chosen place of birth. As their estimated due date approached, the situation changed, and the hospital was able to facilitate the support of elite midwives. Together, we had the privilege of supporting this family as they welcomed their baby, and it remains a beautiful example of what can happen when continuity, trust, and collaboration are placed at the center of care. This conversation originally appeared on the Elite Independent Midwives podcast. I'm delighted to share it with you as a bonus episode. And do stay until the very end, where I read a poem that is very special to me. It was written for me by a mother I supported following the birth of her daughter, and it remains one of the most touching gifts I have ever received. Please enjoy my conversation with Keri and Bev of Elite Midwives. Welcome. I'm so happy to have this chat with you both. So, question that I always have for every midwife I work with. Obviously, sometimes it's not possible to have before, but I'm always like to the clients, make sure you bring teas and coffees for midwives. So, start off with, how do you normally take your tea? Just in case anyone's.
I'm a strong breakfast tea.
Okay.
One sugar.
Milk?
Sweet enough, aren't you?
I like a mint tea. I
Okay.
Yeah, I just find it's better for me. I think, as you get older, you discover what the intolerances are you've had. And for me, it was milk, a lot of milk. So I try and avoid milk as much as I can. I will have a strong breakfast tea as well, but I do prefer a mint tea. It's better for me.
Love that answer. I'm not too much of a tea drinker, so when I'm at birth, sometimes when it's been a long stint, coffee has come to the
Yeah,
rescue.
yeah. I
Yes.
mean, we both like a coffee if we're at a birth, don't we? Just to keep yourself awake. But yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So, how did you get into midwifery? What drew you to this as a career? What were you doing before as well?
Shall I go
Go?
first?
Yeah, go on.
So I did a year volunteering on a women's ward. So lots of oncology patients, lots of acutely unwell women. And I think I knew I wanted to go into healthcare, but wasn't really quite sure what I wanted to go into. And the midwifery unit was literally next door to where the because this is when you used to have ward for kind of women's health ward. And yeah, I was just drawn to that when I was doing volunteering. And then saw some really quite sad stuff within the oncology side and decided that actually I want to make a difference, but balance it off by kind of supporting people to bring their babies into the world. So I did the year volunteering and I literally went straight into midwifery.
Okay, amazing. How long ago was that?
Oh, dare I say it? I qualified in 2009.
Okay, amazing. Okay,
Did 3 years training and then qualified.
yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic. How
it
about you?
seems like yesterday.
Yeah, and I used to be a dance teacher, but at 18 I wanted to be a midwife, but I think I got involved in dancing. I've been dancing since I was 4 years old. So I went on and was a dance teacher and then did some shows and traveled the country a little bit. But still in the back of my mind wanted to be a midwife. And then I had my children. Some of the care I received, I thought, oh, do you know what? I'd like to do this because actually I would have done that differently. never thinking that I'd ever be a midwife because I didn't really leave school with any qualifications. And I started working in maternity as a healthcare assistant. And I met a lady who was having her second baby and had to go to theatre, and she was absolutely petrified. So I sort of went into theatre with her. I said, "Why aren't you a midwife? Can't you deliver babies?" And I said, "Oh no, I'm too old, blah, 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 blah. I haven't got exam." And she raised the money to send me to college. And
Wow.
now one of my whenever I have a wobble, apart from Keri, I will go to my friend Nina and say, "Right, I'm gonna go for this. What do you think?" She goes, "Yep, do it." And she did, and it was really good. So that was in 2011 I started. And
Wow,
yeah,
amazing. I
um,
absolutely love that. I would have never known had we not had this conversation, you
yeah.
know. I love how, Kerry, you shared about, like, when you were talking about working on oncology and then being drawn to the other ward, where the maternity ward. I was thinking about how often this is such a calling for people, it's a lot of people I speak to who work within birth. It's like, oh yeah, no, maybe their moms used to be midwives or somebody in the family. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. Do some of your dance skills come out at births, Bev?
I mean, mine don't. I've got 2 left feet.
Do I dance at birth?
She dances all the time.
Yeah.
I dance anywhere.
She's very jumpy.
We were in a shop earlier, and I was just in the aisle, dancing
Walked in the
away,
other
and she's
direction.
like, "Oh, only you."
I love that. Do you know what? I do that all the time as well. Like, once one of my friends were like, "Are you dancing to the washing machine?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we listen to the Fetal Heart, I'm dancing away. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Oh, I
rhythm.
love that.
Dancing
Yeah.
that rhythm.
Yeah.
I've
She
definitely
walks
danced.
like a ballerina. So yeah, she does that as well, on her
Brilliant.
tiptoe.
Yeah.
I love that. That is a good form of pain relief. I've definitely suggested dancing at a birth. I remember one birth in particular where they had all the lovely hypnobirthing music and like all the like nice, gentle, calming sounds in the background. And things were, slowing down. And this was like quite a few hours in. And I thought, oh, yeah, I remember them telling me that they met at the salsa club. And I was like, okay, guys, this music's putting me to bed. I bet it's doing the same to your baby.
Yeah.
Let's stick some music on, and me and mom were just like dancing around. Dad got involved. And it just was such a lovely way of changing the environment at the birth as well. Which leads me to the next question. I wanted to find out about what you enjoy the most at home births. What do you like about working with people giving birth at home? Do you like it?
Oh yeah,
Love
of
it.
course.
Love it. And it's always nice. We were so fortunate when we worked with you because it was just a perfect team dynamic, wasn't it? Because everybody, we'd all listened to the clients' wishes and what they wanted for that birth experience. And of course, it was just really nice that we all just did our own little bit. For me, it's seeing the woman afterwards when she's realized what she's just done, that euphoria of actually I've done it,
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter who the woman is, they always have that little element of doubt. We see it all the time, don't we? That I can't do it, I can't do it. And it is either fear or I
Yeah.
really haven't got the strength to do it. And it's that bit where they've got the babes in arms and they've actually done it and they just say, I did it. We see women say that all the time, I've done it. And
Yeah.
they look at the part, and that's the bit for me. I really love that bit. That always gets me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's just being able to support physiology. And I mean, I've both worked within the hospital, something for a very long time, and birth centres, but to be in someone's home and support them during that really kind of intimate moment, and even in the hospitals, I
Mm.
think
Yeah.
it's a pleasure to be there for the birth. It's a very proud moment, I think, and
Mm.
actually for someone to welcome you into that quite vulnerable time is, I just don't think it could be replicated in another profession. I feel very, very blessed to be in that position.
Yeah.
Um, and really, we are watching and supporting emotionally, and it's very rare that we need to intervene, physically provide any support. But it's yeah,
Mm.
yeah, blessed.
Yeah, very beautifully said, and I think it speaks to something that I feel is like really at the heart of like how I practice, and I know how you both practice, which is about holding space. We know that women can do it. We're there to help keep them safe. We know about the importance of environment, and the importance as well of like acknowledging that what's going on isn't just the physical thing. It's also mental and emotional, and it's just such a also like a, I'm so drawn to rites of passage work, and that when you enter a birth space, be it at a home or in the hospital, it's a sacred space, and it's such an honor as well working with people who can acknowledge that and really center the women in their care, because it was such and not just the woman, but the family as well. I think the dad who we worked with would definitely agree that, like, he felt supported by all of us, and just having the team and, them, including baby, the three of them just being at the center of the care and us adapting when we needed to. I remember filling up buckets of water to try and
Yeah,
get
we're getting her in that pool. That's what she wanted.
There was lots of steps. I just remember running up and down those steps, but we did it.
we did
Um,
do it,
and
yeah.
it was their birth experience that they wanted, so it was great. And
Exactly. And it's like it's something as well, like about birth of like, it's a rite of passage for everyone who's involved, but just coming into the world with so much love and joy around, and mom not having like as much fear as well. I think that's the beauty of home births, but also when things can't go according to plan A, being able to provide that continuity of care makes such a difference. I always think it's not necessary about like what you bring into the space, but it's also like it's who you are as well, not like in terms of what you bring in terms of like, oh, equipment. But one of the things that you pointed out, Bev, was about like around like the fear of childbirth. What do you think in our society, why do you think so many women have that fear?
sometimes it's a fear, especially with our first time, if it's their first baby, that fear of that unknown, and there's anxiety around that. But you look at social media and, the news as it is at the moment around maternity services, and like as with everything, you don't get told the good stories, the things that are great, and the wonderful birth keepers, doulas, midwives, obstetricians who are out there. You only hear the stories where things aren't right. And like anyone, it makes you frightened. And I also think that sometimes we're finding when we're meeting new clients now, they say weren't given all this information, we weren't given the honest truth. But there is this risk, and this is the risk. And I think it's sometimes they don't get enough information to then be able to work out what their fears are, and we can talk through this. And that's a lot of what we're doing at the moment, isn't it? When we meet new clients, one of the first things we'll say to them is, okay, if you've had a baby before, talk to us about that birth experience. How was it? Was there anything that you want to share with us that was really positive, anything negative, and anything we debrief, we go through it with them. And I think that's a lot of the problem is they don't it's a lack of understanding or a lack of information being given to them to
Yeah.
be able to process it. And then you've got social media, the news, everything else on top of it. And obviously some friends, they do love to tell you their horror birth stories. And one of the things I always say is don't share birth stories with your friends until you've got a birth story to share. Because if it's your first baby, you don't want to hear your 10 friends
Yeah.
tell you how, "Oh, I was at labour for 67 hours," because actually, probably when we broke it down, that wasn't the case. But that's going to frighten you when actually, let's just say, "Oh, I'll listen to your birth story when I've got my own to share with you." And then that way you can, hopefully have a positive experience and share that with people.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know
think
what you think.
there's a lot of fear, and kind of, I think you said it really, there's like a lack of education,
Yeah.
and we can't really blame this on COVID. I think it's had an impact, but like parent education classes. And I mean, I remember as a student, like having rooms full of, soon to be parents mixing with each other, and kind of sharing their excitement, and, you know, being able to know what pain relief's available to them, and more in depth of instrumental deliveries, or how to cope, or whether they should have a home birth, or whether they should go to a birthing centre, and who different people are within the healthcare professional setting, so they kind of know what to expect if they are delivering in a hospital environment. And you don't have that now. And even as a midwife walking into a unit potentially you've not worked in, I look at people and I'm like, don't know who you are. Oh, you're not introducing yourself. Don't know who you are. You could be a doctor, you could be a student. And for me, if I find that overwhelming as like a clinician, I don't know how people are navigating their way through that as soon to be parents. I find that quite overwhelming. And it's quite an isolating, fear mongering type society that we live in. It's like people don't really mix and don't really share their preferences or previous experiences or any of that. And they're relying on Dr. Google, they're relying on other people's experiences of that. Was that a good hospital? Did you have a good home birth? Did anyone come out to you? Or, did you have a good outcome? Did you not? And it shouldn't be like that. There definitely needs to be a big shake up. And I think even as midwives, I have a fear sometimes because it's luck of the draw of who you get as a clinician looking after you. So we know some amazing obstetricians, absolutely amazing doulas like you, other amazing midwives. It's just very few across all of the kind of professionals that it takes one person to get a bad outcome to then almost tarnish everyone with the same.
Yes.
And that's not the case at all. And I don't know how you combat that because you've got all of the reports, national failings coming out. It's just in the limelight. And I mean, I would be scared if I was having a baby now. Even, we say ignorance is bliss, but even knowing what I know, that would scare me because all you see is the bad and when it goes wrong. And the positive is it seems like it's few and far between. And we know that it's not. But yeah, it's how to kind of turn that around.
Turning that mindset, isn't it? And actually putting it out there. And, when the amount of, you must find this as well, you meet new clients who want to have a home birth. And, oh, my auntie said, I'm having a home birth. I must be mad. And it's like, hang on a minute. That client we had, she had 3 of us as professionals supporting her, as well as her partner. And when you just think you wouldn't get that inside a hospital setting. And a lot of these hospitals are so stretched that these poor midwives are running between 1, 2, 3 women that are in labour. That doesn't happen when we're at a home birth, as you know, we're there
You protect
till the
space.
end, and that space is protected, and that nothing else encroaches on that space unless you need it to. And I think, I think it's about changing that mindset. And yes, we do need. They are reporting on the failings, and yes, they are looking into it. But we need to hear a few more positive things about how wonderful home for us, particularly home births are. That euphoria that's felt by it, not just the couple, but by us as well. When that baby arrives and everyone's happy, and it's just lovely. And then leaving a family. I know that when we left, we got the pool, everything tidied up, and we left you, and it was just really nice because you come away with that, and you just want to shout from rooftops. Just had a beautiful birth in there,
Yes.
and we obviously can't give too much away, but you just want to tell everyone that was amazing what we've just been through. We've just shared that with that family.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's really
absolutely.
hard.
Yeah, it is. And I know that feeling so well of like when you just want to stop people on the street and be like, this amazing thing has just happened. It's like I've witnessed this
Yeah.
amazing miracle, because it's like I even like when I talk to some of my mentees or people who I train,
Yeah.
like just to warn you, when you attend a birth, afterwards you might feel a bit like like just so excited, and that
Yeah.
feeling can last with you, and it's such an addictive feeling of like, oh my goodness, you've just witnessed such a beautiful moment in that family's lives. And what always gets me crying now is when you have the parents call their parents as well, and like, because we're in this lovely amazing bubble all together, and seeing the ripple effects of that as well, and just those conversations always get me going. But I think, a lot of people I work with, sometimes after they've had a positive birth experience, they might be like, oh, I'm a bit scared of telling people like how well it went. I'm like, look, you have to tell people, because I think sometimes when people have an experience that maybe they don't fully understand, that they need to debrief it they can talk about it as a way of almost like unconsciously bringing it up and wanting to understand it, you know. And also we know that like a lot of pregnant women, as soon as people see that they're pregnant, they will give them unsolicited advice and tell them all of these stories. So it's just so important what you said about really protecting your energy and surrounding yourselves. Of course, you're going to be excited about what's coming up, but surrounding yourselves with the right information. And that's why I think these podcasts and videos and just information, like how we're able to maybe use, you know, social media in a good way to say, no, these births are happening, and having these conversations. And that actually, it depends who you're talking to, because if you ask people like us what birth is like, we'll say all this stuff because that's what we see. But if you ask an obstetrician, they trained in something completely different. So the majority of their births are very different. When I've had clients who've been medical students or worked as obstetricians, they just so shocked at like how different it can be, you know. And even with home births, like sometimes you hear people saying, oh, I don't know if I'll have a home birth with my first, you know, I'll wait until my second. And in the interview, when I talk to clients and just see if we're a good fit for each other, I'm like, okay, when we talk in the antenatal sessions, once we work together, part of my job is about giving you access to all of your options. So when we talk about place of birth, I will talk about home birth. Just as if somebody has had a home birth with me, I will still talk about a cesarean birth, because we don't know what can happen and we want people to be informed, as you said, Keri, you know. So what surprises me a lot is that the people who end up going for the home births is often the ones who are like, I'm not too sure. And then when they understand that actually home births open up your choices, and it means that it opens up your options. Sorry, it means that, you know, if you decide you want to transfer, you can. We're not going to hold you hostage and be like, you have to have this birth. But what it means is that you are more informed. You know, the appointments that you have with the midwives antenatally are just so much more like a conversation and getting to know you and knowing your space as well, you know. And there's something that changes in a woman's kind of like mind-body connection when it's like, we're coming to your space, you know. And of course, if we need to transfer, if you want to transfer, your options actually open up so much more. I remember a few years ago going to the hospital because my client made it certain to me, so like clear, that I want to have an epidural. And she's like, are you going to stop me? I was like, who am I to stop you? Of course I'm not going to stop you. So little birth story here. I remember going over to hers and she had like both parents, grandparents from both sides. And I was just like, oh, this environment. I'm glad you're starting things out at home, but there was just so much noise around her from people who are really scared, you know. And I was like, I can kick them out if you want me to, you know, I'll play the bad cop. So I did that. And I said to her, look, things are still early on, got quite a few more hours. Stay at home, call me when things pick up, and then we'll go to the hospital. So a few hours later, sure enough, I get her to the hospital, we get triaged. They say, we're getting a room ready in the labor ward for you. And then about half an hour later, they asking me, can you go and check what's happening with our room? And then the midwife says, sorry, somebody's transferred from a home birth, so they get priority over the room. And that happened again twice, weirdly, within that same few hours with that client. She ended up giving birth in the birth center, being really, really, really happy with the outcome. I was concerned about, like, you know, she really wanted the epidural, but she was fearful of that, you know. But I share that story to say, even when you're transferring from a home birth, it's not like you're going to be judged as like, oh, you're that person who is crazy and wanting a home birth, that it's something that's so far-fetched. And I think a lot of the fear as well is like, we've almost forgotten. I find myself saying to people, like, if birth, you know, everything in life has a risk, but if birth was this risky, we'd probably be extinct if women couldn't do it, you know? And it's not also just about the birth. It's about how held and how safe you feel during the pregnancy. And your midwives aren't going to go, oh no, you decided not to have a home birth, you know, and push that. So I think, you know, we know that the state of midwifery, you know, is not in a good way, or maternity services rather. I am fortunate that I know so many amazing midwives, and we work together so beautifully. But there's also like so much pressure around midwifery as well, and we're losing so many midwives. And then when you look at the science, actually it shows us that the safest place for people to give birth is at home, but also that continuity of care makes the world of difference to women.
So I was going to say, you mentioned earlier about kind of almost we know what we know. So obstetricians specialize in exactly that. So when things deviate, operative deliveries, instrumentals, and I think a lot of time when we're going into clients, that's one of the things they say, oh, well, I don't want that. And, doctors will do this, this, and this. Well, doctors won't do anything because they have to get your consent. But in the same respects, you have to be informed about risks. We risk assess all the time. That's part of our job. You won't see us doing it all the time, but that's part of what's going on in the background. But we can't say you're fully informed unless you've had that conversation and said, oh, actually, yes, I completely acknowledge what you're saying, or I know that that's the guideline, but actually for me, this is what I'm going to do. No one will force you to do anything against your will. So I think that's a really, really important thing to focus on, because I think the fact that it seems like our induction rate has gone through the roof and half of them there isn't really a clinical indication is a massive issue that needs to be looked at. But I think doctors seem to be solely blamed for that. But as midwives, we are autonomous practitioners and we should be advocating for that. So if we feel that, what is this indication, having that frank conversation. But going back to fear, litigation is huge, and there is such a fear of things going wrong, kind of professionals having inaccurate evidence and inaccurate statistics. And, it might be 1 in 10,000, but to them, that's still a 1. So actually, I'm going to tell you about it and emphasize that. I think as midwives, you were saying about when we're transferring into home births, I think we have quite a junior workforce because we've had such professionals, such a huge amount of midwives leave with such huge experience. People want to do right by patients, but I mean, we're up north at the moment, and some of the units we've transferred into have never seen a water birth, never seen a home birth. And my heart sinks a little bit because for me, anyone can do a CTG.
Yeah. Because it's a machine, isn't it? We see a lot of students, don't we?
Yeah. They're like, can we come and do intermittent auscultation with you? Because we've never done that in the unit. And my heart sinks because that's what I learned with when
that was the basics,
your little pinard and this sonicade. And 2009 is not that long ago.
Not at all. Yeah.
Things have changed so much. I find really scary. So again, when we were saying luck of the draw, I think you have to have the knowledge behind you to know why home birth's being considered by so many people, why people feel safer in their own environment. But you also need clinicians on the other end to acknowledge when you need to be recommending not staying at home. And that's the really fine balance that I don't think we, as professionals, always get right, because there seems to be a big emphasis to stay at home at all costs sometimes. And then there's sometimes an emphasis that someone walks into a home birth and it's like, I'm not comfortable with this because I'm not used to this, especially if it's someone who's been sent out from a unit who's never done a home birth, and you find they're transferred in when they really don't need to be. So there's such an imbalance at the moment going on, I think, within maternity services.
Yeah. I think we need to go back to basics of midwifery, basic midwifery, tenards. What is the TV program?
One born every minute.
No,
Midwives.
Oh, the midwives. Let's go back to that, where everything is basics, is it? Basic midwifery. And that's what when we...
I can't ride a bike.
I mean,
I was thinking, I don't know if I want to ride a bike in London either.
I mean, you've got too much stuff that we take round to ride a bike. But the point is that they've stopped doing that. It is the reliance on a machine to make sure that the baby is well is just overused, and it's been, as a lot of students are taught, that that's a form of security, or you can hear the heartbeat. But actually, if you don't understand what it's doing, it doesn't matter if you can hear it. And I was thinking, it's like when you were talking then, that I thought, oh, I must say that, and I can't remember what it was. It'll come back to me. That's called old age.
No, it happens to me. I call it that, like, when women have baby brain, I'm around pregnant women all the time. I think it's contagious. That's my excuse.
I could use that one instead of
Oh,
just my children
no.
tell me it's a senior moment.
No, no, no. No, it's all the birth hormones and
Yeah,
pregnancy hormones.
I'll go with that one.
Yeah, it's so important, just what you were saying, that the access to accurate information as well. And also, just we live in a world where we think, oh, because I've got social media on my phone or I can Google this, it means I'm so connected. But also, not all the information you come across, you might think as a pregnant woman, I'm doing some research on Google. You don't know, like, has that research been done correctly? Or you don't know, like,
Yeah.
okay, doctor is saying there's more of a chance of this, or anyone. It's like, but okay, what is more? Because 1% is more than 0.8%, and it's that thing of like, yeah, we're more connected, but also we're so disconnected because a lot of people, when I ask them, oh, do you know how you were born? Or like, what are the birth stories within your family? And people aren't talking. So it's almost like doing a balance of like researching where can I find the good information? What kind of podcasts can I listen to get a bit more informed? Or can I work with my caregivers in a collaborative way? So many times I'll go to appointments with people with obstetricians and with parents. And sometimes I don't even say anything, I'm just there in the room. But it's almost like that fear from the parents where we're just having a normal conversation with the obstetricians. And it's just like, oh, this is just about exactly what you said, bringing it back to basics, centering the woman and her care, finding out like, oh, what is it that you're afraid of? Let's get down to the nitty gritty of that. And just so you know that there is something that we've thought of, because of course we do risk assessments all the time. Even when I have families who say to me, oh, I'm thinking of a free birth. I'm like, can I just meet you in person? Because I think, yes, I have to risk assess. Are you actually informed? And how do you respond when I say, if I'm not happy about anything, I'm going to call the ambulance? And actually, can we maybe just meet up with the midwives and see what they like? Maybe you've heard some stories of bad experiences, and usually just even that situation, then they go, oh, okay, yes, I'm happy to do that, or even clients have been like, oh no, I don't want my baby heart rate listened to. I'm like, okay, do you know what the reasons are? And even things like vaginal exams. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, but dilation tells us this and that, but also it can be helpful with helping you make some decisions. And of course, you have autonomy, you can say no, but just that like really understanding and taking responsibility as well, and I think it's time, making sure that people have the time to get the information and the right information, but also that spending time with the people you work with, you are able to do because you get to know them. And we know so much that our work also isn't just copy and paste, it's adapting to each family and making sure that you meet them where they are as well, and yeah.
And I think that's one of the beauties of this job is because it's not one size fits all. But going back to what I forgot, but it's now come back to me. I think a lot of clients as well are frightened of losing their voice. And that is part of all our job is actually, no, your voice is what's important. We're just there to empower you to use it. And I think you hear a lot of stories about, and this is where the fear of transfer in is. I think they are saying, well, I've been transferred in, and then no one was listening to me. No one heard what I was saying. No one wanted to know my thoughts. And you do hear it. I'm sure you've heard it lots of times. We've heard it lots of times. And it's heartbreaking. And you just think, well, why is no one listening to this person that's telling you what they want? But they do. And we hear that a lot. I mean, as soon as I got into hospital, no one listens.
Yes, exactly.
As a doula, sorry, why again, I'm going to say it, where's it? Come out. So we promote you all the time. We believe that your ethos, your advocacy for your patients, but providing information is like, yeah, exemplary. And it was a pleasure to work with you and kind of see that collaboration. More and more, we're hearing and seeing almost the doula role being reversed into a don't accept anything. So don't accept midwives, don't accept obstetricians. Now, for me to see how amazing you were with our patient and just even working with you, it was like a breath of fresh air. So it saddens me because it's like I said earlier, it only takes one or two individuals to kind of give the whole profession kind of almost that reputation. But to have physically witnessed people say you don't need that CTG or you don't need that scan, but it's not being made by the actual woman or person, but made by a doula who has herself maybe seen or gone through something that she associates negativity or he associates negativity with. How do you feel about that? Because I mean, I don't know if you've experienced that, people saying that to you, and there's definitely more of an imbalance on social media groups. It's just, yeah, more on how you're finding that as a doula within the profession.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. I love that question so much because it's such an important question, you know? I think, and I don't use this word lightly, I think it's really dangerous to have those ideas when somebody, because of their own experiences or because of experiences that they might have had from another birth, to come in and to influence somebody else's birth experience, it's really, really, really dangerous, you know? And I think it needs to be there's so much within this. It's like, I don't believe that necessarily regulating the profession is the answer. I think that it might have some benefits, but I think there's such a responsibility, especially now when I train people. I really emphasize the importance of this is about the woman. If
Yeah.
you have any birth stories that you haven't debriefed from or your experiences, if you have given birth, you need to really make sure that you look at your experiences and know that when you're going into the space for holding space for somebody else, it has absolutely nothing to do with you. You are there to really make sure that that woman is in her power. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing. It's a time of vulnerability. I say to my clients all the time, I don't want you to give me your power. And when there's sometimes those moments where maybe they're being asked something, you know, to give consent, and then they look at me and I'm like, okay, remember we spoke about this. Let's go through it again. Let's take the time to actually talk about this, you know, so that they understand. And so they understand that, oh, we might need to deviate from plan A. And, you know, it goes back to that. It's about good quality information. When I interview people, I say, you know, if you want somebody who's going to say, let's go into the woods and give birth under a full moon with like wolf or whale or dolphin sounds blasting from a speaker, I'm not the person. I'm not doing that. You know,
Yeah.
I see my role as being like a birth keeper where of course, I respect like the amazing, beautiful lineage of midwives and birth keepers we've all come from. That's had such a huge impact into what we know in birth history, you know. But also the science is important, and it's almost about speaking both languages
Yeah.
and marrying those two. And often the science catches up to that wisdom, but it's so important. Conflict doesn't do anyone any good. Like I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm in the birth space and I'm bringing conflict, you know, or if there is conflict, I know that I can take it outside of the room. And it's about working together. And there's such a beautiful example recently where my client wanted to be in the hospital, made sure she got there, she gets there, she's 10 centimeters dilated, third time mom. The first two births, they would say were traumatic for them because they didn't have somebody there with them. They were in a cupboard room for hours without anyone, you know, finding out what's going on or communicating with them. So there was a midwife who came over. Oh, no, sorry, I got there. They were there already. 2 minutes, kind of like time lapse between when we got there. They were relieved to see me. She's already in. So they got to the labor ward room. Legs are in stirrups. And the midwife is trying to do some monitoring, continuous monitoring, and, you know, say hi to the parents, say hi to the midwife. And the conversation was literally, hey, is there a reason? Like, what's the clinical indication for doing this continuous monitoring? You know, I heard the good news, she's 10 centimeters dilated. And the midwife's response was, who are you? I'm the midwife, you know, let me do my job. And I said, no, I know that there's some concerns and why she needs to be in the labor ward. That's to do with after her birth. She's feeling a bit scared now. And the woman, you know, she was asking for an epidural, screaming that it's her right. And I'm trying to explain to her because I know it's her fear talking. She's like, look, you are safe and everything's going to go okay. And helped her to turn over onto her side. and worked with the midwife saying, look, you can listen to baby's heart rate now. And just having that conversation every time she had a contraction, I was like, yeah, it's finished, and communicating with the midwife and maintaining that respect, Woman's 10 centimeters dilated. She's about to bring life into the world. She needs all the oxytocin and love. And we're like oxytocin agents, aren't we? We can influence it and we can take it away.
Yeah.
And after the baby came, that midwife said, I'm so sorry. Gave me a hug. We worked so well together. And I was like, look, yeah, we can talk about it another time. I'm glad that you were on board. I'm glad that we worked to making this experience a beautiful experience. What I loved the most was that there was a student midwife there, and she was witness to that interaction, and it's that like generational kind of like passing on to other people. And even like, when you spoke about the midwives with so much experience leaving the profession, it breaks my heart because it's like such a wealth of information. Those people are like our elders. When they leave, it's all that wisdom and autonomy, and like how can we work with women, like the actual definition of midwifery. So I always say to people, not going to talk bad things about midwives, and I share that example to say, look, you can handle the situation differently. I've had conversations with obstetricians before. I remember an obstetrician back early on when I started almost 12 years ago. This client was terrified. They'd had some meetings and they just didn't see eye to eye. She wanted a home birth, and baby came really late, past 42 weeks. I wasn't even her doula. Her doula had to go and get married. So she was like, I need somebody to step in.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll try. I'm new in this experience. Stayed with them at home to the point where it's like, guys, we need to transfer now. It's no longer safe to be at home. We were in the hospital, and I remember giving them a bit of space in the labor ward room and sitting outside on a chair outside the room. I said, I'll give you a bit of space. I'm just going to go away. And I just sat outside of the room because I thought they need a bit of oxytocin, but they've, been through a lot, So I was like, yeah, do some like nipple stimulation, just bring love back into the room, ground yourselves, remind yourselves that what's happening here is you're bringing your baby into the world. And then I remember seeing this obstetrician coming down the corridor with a few midwives and saying, I need to speak to her. And I said, could you please get us a room where me and you can just sit down and have a conversation? We need to sit down. This isn't a conversation we can have in like, she is terrified of you walking into this room. And I just said, look, she's going to remember this experience forever. When she's 90 and she can't remember what she's eaten for breakfast that morning, she'll remember how we treat her. So can we just go in there viewing this as like, this is sacred space, and like we have so much influence to make her feel safe, regardless of the relationship you've had. So I think it's so much about like examining also oneself, and like what does it mean to hold space for others? We can't blame it necessarily on the institutions or things we don't have power of. I can't blame it on the midwife. I don't know what she'd gone through in the shift. Midwives are under a lot of pressure. I can't blame it on the obstetrician. I don't know what experiences he's had as such. So the onus has to be on ourselves and go, are we being safe for people? Because when the answer to that is a no, or we're telling people no to the CTG, no, she doesn't want to accept this, without that understanding and that care, then we need to step out of the profession. So I think, just like not all midwives are the same, not all doulas are the same, it's so important. And, it's important that women question people who they work with and really know, like, okay, just because you are a doula doesn't mean you're the right doula for me. How do you work? And ask them those uncomfortable questions, and ask them, how do you work with the midwives? What is your agenda? And the only agenda should be that she is informed, really.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think also just taking it away from the job, just in general life, there sometimes seems to be that lack of respect or kindness, no matter who it is.
Isn't it?
We made a phone call today to a trust because we wanted to discuss one of our clients that we've got coming up. And the first person answered the phone, and I said, "Oh, my name's Beverly. I'm an independent midwife." And she went, "Oh." And I just was like, okay. And I said, oh, and can I speak to so-and-so? Now, when we spoke to the more senior person, lovely. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. We've been asked to take the care on from 34 weeks for home birth because we understand your home birth service isn't running, blah, blah, blah. And she said, no, that's lovely. That's absolutely great. But that initial one went, oh, and I immediately got my back and I thought, well, why have you judged me? You don't know me. Take all the titles away. I'm still a midwife.
Yeah.
I've done the same training as you. I want the same outcome as you. But yeah, and I just think people take away your titles. And I think I went on training. That's the first thing this woman said was, take away your titles. Who are you?
Yeah.
I'm a mum of 5 and a nanny. You know, you're Keri. That respect. And then when we've got our titles with regards our jobs, then remember at the end of the day, we might have conflict with each other. But as you said, when you go into that room, that's not our
No.
space. That's that woman's space. And we need to forget that. But
Yeah, it's the defensiveness. It's like you said when you were speaking about, oh, why are you doing the CTG? Like, it's not questioning your ability. It's, well, if you can't inform me, have you even informed the patient why you're doing it? And it seemed to be like a real, again, when I I studied with like an old school Irish midwife, and it was like, you don't do anything until you explain why, what impact it has and if they want it. That's always how I learned. So to not see that and almost that defensiveness, it just makes me really sad. And I mean, we've tried to do, when we worked in trust, we're making loads of improvements, and people don't want to change. It's that,
and
I'm going to do this, and that's their job, that's not my job. And you're like, oh, it just makes me so sad, like, because we all used to work together so well. So when, it's like you said, when independent midwives or birth keepers or doulas used to come into the unit, I used to be like, yay, like it's someone else, like make them a drink. But actually sometimes you very much see the shutdown in the process of, oh, well, as if they don't know what they're doing, or they're enforcing something that actually shouldn't be kind of conducted. And it's, the mind boggles how society works.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like even with those careers, because I think it's remembering like, why did you come into this work? I always start off on the basis of like, if you're choosing to go into maternity, I'm going to assume you're doing it because you care about women and you care about people, because women also give birth to boys, so it's about everyone. You care about humanity. So even when people are like, is this a good hospital? I'm like, no, it's about your doula needs to have the skill to be able to connect with people, and respect. It's almost like the solution seems and like so multi-layered, and there's all these studies and like ways of working. Should we go back to this model? Should we create a new model? But often I find it just comes back to that basic of like kindness and love, And sometimes I just want to be like, hang on, like, can you not come into this room unless you bring that in, because that's the thing that really makes a huge difference. And what people remember, and like how amazing to be born into a space like that, and moms who feel like they were treated with kindness no matter what how the birth goes. It's not about, did I have the epidural or not, or was it 60 hours or 2 hours, was I treated with kindness at the time of your life when you are so vulnerable, and maybe you don't use your voice, as you were saying, Bev, earlier on, you don't know how to use the voice. It's like that juxtaposition of like, you're bringing life into the world, which the more I do this work, the more I'm just like in awe of birth and women. And then that vulnerability at the same time, like holding those two things together is like, okay, it can be a thing where like, some women feel like, oh, I need to shut down, but it's such a thing of, this is the time you need to speak up, and if you also can't speak up for yourself, you need to speak up for that child, because we need to. And also like women have the voices. If they say, look, no, I'm not accepting this offer, or I am, or this is the kind of care I'd like, we need to make sure like it's everyone's responsibility, in a way. And it's not good if people are losing skills that, they should have had. Or
sorry, I need to interrupt you.
No, go. We all just want to talk.
I know. Also, sometimes people, if you for instance, if you say, why are you doing that CTG, people immediately see that as a negative rather than actually it's not a criticism of you. We just want to have an understanding. And why do people always feel that it's a criticism? Doesn't matter what you're asking. You know, as midwives, we're trained, and I'm sure as but doulas and birth keepers the same. You are trained to challenge things, to ask and have an understanding. But people, even though they're in that same profession and know that, still take that as a well, I'm the midwife, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm not
I wanna be
asking for my benefit. I
Yeah.
know, I've read the research on
Yeah,
CTs.
we've read
I
all
can give you
that.
a lecture.
Yeah.
I want the woman to understand, you know, and if there's no reason, then yeah. And interestingly, then I went to a birth at the same hospital about 2 months later. And my clients were really like early on in labor. I said, let me pop in and see you and let's see how things go. And then the midwife had to take a break. And then the person who was relieving her was that midwife. And she came in and she's like, oh, my friend. And she gave me a hug. And it was such a beautiful turnaround, you know,
Yeah.
because it also wasn't like, you know, like I would never dream. And, you know, I think this is probably the second time I've shared the story because I know you'll understand the like
Yeah.
nuances because you tell that story to somebody else and it could easily be like, oh, but midwives are like this in the culture. And it's like, no, but you can really influence those dynamics within the room as
100%.
well, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Working with partners, how do you make sure that partners get involved in the birth and don't feel like when we're going to the space with all of our dance moves and experience and tools and love and oxytocin to make sure that they have an experience where they can go, do you know what? We did this experience. So he's not just like, you know, in the corner or, you know, if the partner, he or she, you know, how do you make sure that you involve them in the care?
I think again, it's personalised and context is really important. So we have seen all extremes. We've seen dads that want to be in the room but are attached to the wall that are literally like, just tell me when it's done, but I'm here. And then we've seen
Dads get in the pool.
that are, yeah, they get in the pool and you're like, please put some clothes on.
I love it. I love it when they get in the pool. I think, you know, I think that's
With
just
clothes on.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
with clothes
Yes,
on.
definitely.
That's such a tender moment, and it's, you know, and as you know, we take pictures and make it and do things, but and it just, I think that is lovely when they get in the pool. But as Keri said, we've
Antenatally, isn't it?
Yeah.
So knowing what they want antenatally and educating them. So a lot of dads are like, oh, I don't want to cut the cord. Oh, there's going to be blood everywhere. And it's like, it's not like that at all. Or I might cut something off. We're not going to let you cut anything off. So it's reinforcing it, isn't
Yeah,
it?
and it's building that trust again, I think, as well. We've recently had a client deliver, and her husband was a pinned against the wall type husband. And then once she delivered, he said, didn't he? He said, I'm going to tell all my friends that that was the best experience and they should have a home birth.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
it was their second baby. The first baby, her birth experience was, it wasn't too traumatic, was it? It was just not what she'd wanted.
Yeah.
But you know, she said it was okay, but she really wanted a home birth. So this time she had one, and he just said, "I'm going to tell everyone they have to have a home birth." It was amazing, and you know, and I think it's again, they can't do the protecting then, can they? Because they can't take that pain away, the, you know, whatever. They can't do that. And as a birth partner, it's really difficult to sometimes watch, but to get them involved and say, yeah, but you can do this and you can do, you know, massage the back, you know, or, you know, hold your partner, hold the hand, you know, even if it's hold a bottle of water and give them to, it's bringing them in. And that's where we find it really important to have them there. Not every appointment that we go to, but the majority, the same as when we started with you. We said, oh, it'd be really nice if Thando could come along and join us for a couple of your antenatal appointments, because then we know each other, and
Exactly.
it's like a group of friends really all gathering for the most amazing experience. So I think that's how we do it, isn't
And I
it?
think it's appreciating that we live in a multicultural world with loads of different expectations and experiences. And actually, sometimes we see mums in the room rather than their partners because that's culturally, that's what they want to do and that's how they do it. But it's about how bringing their mum in, and the couple we recently delivered, like you said, it was pinned up against the wall. He was like, no, my mum never did this. And my sisters never did that. And they were always in hospital. And you're like, yeah, but why not? And this is how we're going to alleviate your fear, and this is what we're going to do. And by the end of it, he was just, you know, he was in
pro home.
he was in awe of his partner. It was
Yes.
absolutely amazing to see. He was like,
Oh,
I just can't believe it. So I think it's about knowing the partners, whether they're same-sex couple or,
yeah.
but knowing what they want from it. So the amount of skin to skin we've done when we're like getting people out of the pool and suturing and they've done skin to skin, or I think it's just getting them to engage and be part of it, because we don't want people to be just an onlooker. You're part
Yeah.
of this moment, you're part of this little family.
And I think that's another skill we all have as birth workers, is the fact that we don't go in to take over a
Yes.
birth.
Yeah.
We go in, we are really the onlookers, aren't we? We're the background singers, so to speak, or background dancers, because we're there it's your space as a couple, as a family,
Yeah.
and we're just here to maybe pass you the Entonox or get you out the pool, or run up and down the stairs with the saucepans of water, made the tea. I think I made the tea that night.
You did make the tea.
So I think that's what we're there. Whereas I think sometimes couples are worried that the midwife's going to come in and take. I don't want a midwife there because she's going to come and take over. No, if the midwife knows her job, that isn't her job to take over. Her job is to protect the space, as you've said, and as we've said all through this.
Yeah,
And be fully
exactly.
informed. So if you want a free birth, these are the risks. This
Yeah.
is the fact that you can change your mind at any time. Midwives legally cannot just sit there and not give you any care. But if you are informed to make that decision, that's as a human, that's completely your right to do that. But building that relationship antenatally is really, really important, especially if there's other siblings, because I always cry when they come into the room and see their new baby brother or sister. It chokes me up every time. So I think it's about knowing your clients and realizing, like you said, we're onlookers to this. We'll only intervene if we need to.
Yeah, absolutely. And people will always say like, "Oh, we couldn't have done this without you." But it's about them being that unit and doing it together, and also that recognition of not every birth partner wants to be there breathing with you. It's about how confident you want to feel and like what are your capabilities. I've worked with some dads who are like, I can't be in the room if she starts bleeding because of maybe some religious beliefs, or I worked with a family where the dad is autistic, and he's like, I don't know how I'm going to respond. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. In this situation, I went into theater with mum, but kept him involved and made sure it was a good experience for him as well, because once the baby's arrived and we do our postnatal visits, they will still have that, hopefully be that unit, and that story together, and that will affect the course of their lives and have such a beautiful impact on their relationship as well when they feel really supported.
Definitely.
Definitely, that's amazing.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Okay, so maybe to close, I've got no idea how much time has passed. I've just been like fully absorbed into this conversation, almost like gone into the birth world. But I wanted to share something with you that a client wrote. She said she wrote it for me, but when I read it, I think of like the true like birth workers. So it's a poem she wrote when I supported her with a home birth a few years ago. And again, there was such a beautiful example of working with the home birth team and seeing how her journey from the first birth not being a good experience and this one being like what she calls the greatest day of her life. And knowing that like she's going to tell that story to her daughter who was born that day, and that's going to affect that whole family when they share their birth stories. So I'm going to close by reading this. I'm dedicating it to you both in this moment. It's called Birth Keeper. Birth Keeper, Shah woman of sacred new souls, the whole world is in your hands. A choreographer for first dancers on earth, dancing in the dust of new beginnings, watching over women between two worlds, in service of wonder, holding space for miracles. Outside her window, the world goes about its business as secretly a new planet spins into orbit. A gasp of breath, the song of arrival, pure ocean, eyes gazing out, the sun of a new story, meaning everything. Is there any greater love than the wisdom of the ages, passed down from woman to woman. Be she, goddess, she wolf, both. And what better thing to worship than life itself, rejoicing in everyday magic for the mother of all jobs.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's so lovely to see you and your gorgeous
Straight back at you. Straight
smile.
back at you.
Yeah. It's been lovely seeing you. And
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get to work with you again soon.
I hope so. I would love that. Oh, yeah.
No, so would we. We'd love that too. So yes. But it's been so lovely to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you as well. Love this. Let's keep these conversations going.
Definitely. We're always go.